The Zerathi Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered more than 400 worlds. They had crushed every species that stood against them. Their ships were the most powerful in known space. Their soldiers were bred for war. Their technology was so advanced that younger races thought it was magic. When the Empire found Earth, they laughed. High Lord Kethvan sat on his command throne aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion. He was old for a Zerathi, nearly 300 years, and he had seen more conquests than he could remember. His gray skin was covered in ritual scars, each one marking a world he had personally helped subjugate. He looked at the blue planet on his view screen and felt nothing but boredom. "Report," he said. His science officer, a younger Zerathi named Vexanar, stepped forward. "The planet is called Earth by its inhabitants. They call themselves humans. Population approximately 8 billion. They have primitive nuclear technology, basic space travel limited to their own moon, and communication networks that rely on electromagnetic signals." Kethvan made a sound of disgust. "They have not even discovered fold space travel?" "No, High Lord. They are at least 200 years from that discovery, assuming they survive that long. They will not." Kethvan waved his hand dismissively. "Standard invasion protocol. Send the broadcast." The Empire had a system for conquest. It was efficient and it had worked for 10,000 years. First, they would appear above a planet's major population centers. Then they would broadcast their demands in every local language. Surrender was always the only option given. Most species surrendered immediately. Those who did not were made into examples. The broadcast went out across Earth on a Tuesday morning. It was spring in the northern hemisphere. Children were going to school. People were driving to work. Coffee shops were opening. And then, suddenly, every screen on the planet showed the same image, the face of High Lord Kethvan. He was terrifying to look at. His head was elongated, his eyes were solid black, and his mouth was filled with small, sharp teeth. His gray skin seemed to absorb light, rather than reflect it. When he spoke, his voice was cold and empty of any feeling. "People of Earth, I am High Lord Kethvan, of the Zerathi Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately. All governments will dissolve. All military forces will disarm. All citizens will report to collection centers for processing and assignment. Resistance will result in death. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. You have 1 hour to comply." The broadcast ended. For a moment, Earth was silent. 8 billion people stared at their screens, trying to understand what they had just seen. Some thought it was a joke. Some thought it was a movie promotion. Some fell to their knees and prayed, and some got angry. In Washington, D.C., the President of the United States was rushed to a bunker beneath the White House. His generals surrounded him, speaking rapidly. Satellite images showed massive alien ships hovering over every major city on Earth. Each ship was at least 5 kilometers long. They blocked out the sun. "Sir," said General Morrison, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, "we need to respond." "With what?" asked the president. "We have nothing that can touch those ships." "We don't know that, sir. We haven't tried." The president looked at the images again. New York, Los Angeles, London, Paris, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo, every capital, every major city, shadowed by alien vessels. "They're asking us to surrender," he said quietly. "They're demanding it," General Morrison corrected. "There's a difference. What difference does it make? Look at those ships. Look at the size of them. We can't fight that." General Morrison was a tall woman with gray hair and a face that looked like it was carved from stone. She had served in 3 wars. She had buried friends. She had given orders that killed people. And she had never backed down from a fight in her life. "Sir," she said, "I don't know if we can win, but I know we can fight. And I know that if we surrender without fighting, we deserve whatever they do to us." Similar conversations were happening in bunkers and war rooms around the world. In Moscow, the Russian president ordered his nuclear forces to stand by. In Beijing, the Chinese military began mobilizing. In London, the Prime Minister made a simple announcement: "We will not surrender." The hour passed. Earth did not surrender. High Lord Kethvan was surprised. Not concerned, just surprised. It had been a long time since a species had chosen to resist. He found it almost refreshing. "Begin the pacification," he ordered. The Zerathi invasion force descended on Earth like a plague. Dropships fell from the bellies of the great vessels, each one carrying hundreds of soldiers. They landed in city centers, in military bases, in farmland and forest. The soldiers marched out in perfect formation, their weapons humming with energy. Earth's militaries fought back with everything they had. In the skies over Washington, F-35 fighters engaged Zerathi interceptors. The human jets were fast and agile, their pilots skilled and brave, but the alien craft were faster, and their weapons could destroy a plane with a single shot. The air battle lasted less than 20 minutes. Every human aircraft was destroyed. On the ground, soldiers fired rifles and rockets at the advancing Zerathi. The aliens wore armor that could stop bullets. Their shields could deflect grenades. Their weapons fired beams of energy that could cut a tank in half. But humans kept fighting. In Berlin, a young German soldier named Klaus Richter watched his entire squad die in the first 2 minutes of combat. He was hiding behind a burned car, his rifle useless against the aliens walking down the street toward him. He knew he was going to die. He accepted it. He pulled the pin on his last grenade, stood up, and ran toward the nearest Zerathi soldier. He got close enough to see his own reflection in the alien's black eyes before the grenade exploded. The alien's armor held. Klaus Richter died for nothing, but he died fighting. Stories like this happened all over the world. In Tokyo, an old man drove his truck into a group of Zerathi soldiers. In Cairo, teenagers threw rocks at alien vehicles. In Sao Paulo, a grandmother fired a hunting rifle from her apartment window until they burned the building down. None of it mattered. Not in a military sense. Human weapons could barely scratch Zerathi armor. Human vehicles were toys compared to alien war machines. Human soldiers were brave, but bravery alone cannot stop an enemy that is simply too powerful. Within 48 hours, organized military resistance on Earth had ended. The governments fell one by one. The President of the United States was killed when a Zerathi strike team breached his bunker. The Chinese premier was captured alive and publicly executed. The Russian president launched his nuclear weapons in a final act of defiance. The nuclear missiles rose from their silos, hundreds of them, carrying enough power to destroy the world several times over. They raced toward the alien ships hovering above Earth's cities. High Lord Kethvan watched them come on his view screen. He almost smiled. "Activate planetary defense grid," he said calmly. A wave of energy pulsed out from the Zerathi fleet. Every nuclear missile exploded harmlessly in the upper atmosphere, still miles from their targets. The night sky lit up like a second sunrise, and then it was over. Humanity's greatest weapons had been useless. By the end of the third day, Earth belonged to the Zerathi Empire. High Lord Kethvan walked through the ruins of New York City with an escort of elite guards. The streets were filled with rubble and bodies. Fires still burned in some buildings. The air smelled like smoke and death. He stepped over a human corpse without looking at it. "Interesting species," he said to his aide, Vexnar. They knew they could not win, yet they fought anyway. "I have not seen such stubbornness in centuries." "It is inefficient," Vexnar replied. "They wasted resources and lives for nothing." "Perhaps, but there is something to admire in it, in a primitive way. Like watching an insect bite a predator even as it is being eaten." They stopped at what had once been Times Square. The massive screens were dark now, shattered by weapons fire. Human survivors were being herded into groups by Zerathi soldiers. They would be sorted and assigned to labor castes. The young and strong would work in mines and factories. The weak and old would be disposed of. Children would be raised to serve the Empire. It was the same process the Zerathi had used on 400 worlds. It worked. It always worked. A human woman broke away from one of the groups and ran toward Kethvan. She was screaming something in her language. He did not bother to translate it. A guard raised his weapon, but Kethvan stopped him with a gesture. The woman reached him and began beating her fists against his chest. She was crying. Her hands left no marks on his armor. She was so weak, so fragile, so utterly harmless. "Why?" she screamed. "Why did you do this? We never did anything to you." Kethvan looked down at her with his black eyes. He felt nothing. Not hatred, not pity, not guilt. She was simply an animal making noise. "You had something we wanted," he said in her language. "Your planet, your resources, your labor. That is all the reason the Empire needs." He nodded to his guard. The guard grabbed the woman and dragged her back to the group. She kept screaming until they silenced her. Kethvan continued his walk through the conquered city. In the weeks that followed, the occupation took shape. Zerathi administrators arrived to organize the planet's new role in the Empire. Cities were converted into work camps. Factories were retooled to produce goods for alien markets. Humans learned their new place in the galaxy at the very bottom. Kethvan sent his report to the Empire. Earth had been pacified with minimal Zerathi casualties. The native species was adequately suited for labor. The planet's resources were valuable but not exceptional. It was a successful conquest, if an unremarkable one. He was already thinking about his next assignment, but there was one thing Kethvan had failed to notice. One thing he could not understand because no Zerathi had ever encountered it before. Humanity was not broken. In the ruins and the camps, in the mines and the factories, humans watched their conquerors. They studied them. They learned their language, their technology, their habits, their weaknesses. They smiled and obeyed while hatred burned in their hearts. They did not accept defeat. They simply decided to wait. In a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, a group of survivors gathered around a table. They were scientists, soldiers, and engineers, the best that remained of humanity's brightest minds. They had escaped the invasion by luck or cunning. Now they had a single purpose. General Yuki Tanaka, formerly of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, stood at the head of the table. She was 42 years old. She had lost her husband and son in the invasion. She had nothing left but her mission. "The war is not over," she said quietly. "It has just begun. Today we start planning for the day we take our world back. And after that, we take revenge." No one laughed. No one said it was impossible. They had all seen too much death to believe in impossible things anymore. One of the scientists, an American physicist named David Chen, spoke up. "General, I managed to salvage some of their technology from crashed vehicles. If we can study it, learn how it works, we might be able to build weapons that can hurt them." "How long?" "Years. Maybe decades. I won't lie to you, their technology is centuries ahead of ours." Tanaka nodded. "Then we have work to do. The aliens think they have won. They think we are animals, good only for labor. Let them keep thinking that. Let them grow comfortable. Let them forget that we ever fought back." She looked around the table at the tired, desperate faces of her companions. "They made one mistake," she said. "They let us live. They do not understand what humans are capable of when we have nothing left to lose. They do not know that we can hate for generations. They do not know that we will sacrifice everything for revenge." She placed her hands flat on the table. "The Zerathi Empire has existed for 10,000 years. They have never been defeated, but they have never faced us. They have never faced a species that would burn their own world to ashes if it meant taking their enemies with them." Her voice was cold, calm, and absolutely certain. "One day, we will make them pay for what they have done. Every death, every crime, every moment of suffering, we will repay it 1,000 times over. They came to our home as conquerors. They will leave as corpses." In the darkness of the bunker, surrounded by the ruins of human civilization, the survivors of Earth began to plan. Above them, the Zerathi ships orbited peacefully, their crews unaware of the storm that was gathering below. They had conquered another world. They had crushed another species. Everything was as it should be. They did not understand that they had made a terrible mistake. The Zerathi had built their empire on fear and power. They believed that superior technology and overwhelming force could conquer anything. They had never encountered a species that would fight without hope. They had never met beings who would suffer for years while planning destruction. They had never faced the cold, patient fury of a wounded predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They had never faced humanity, and by the time they understood their error, it would be far too late. In the labor camps, humans worked and died and kept silent. In the mines, they dug ore for their masters and dreamed of fire. In the cities, they served their conquerors and counted the days. Somewhere, in hidden places, scientists studied stolen technology. Somewhere, soldiers trained with captured weapons. Somewhere, generals drew plans for a war that had not yet begun. The Zerathi had won the battle for Earth. But the war, the real war, was just getting started. And humanity never forgives. And humanity never forgets. 5 years had passed since the invasion. Earth was not the same planet it had been. The great cities that humans had built over centuries were now work camps. The skyscrapers of New York held dormitories where thousands of humans slept in shifts. The factories of China produced goods that would be shipped to alien worlds humans would never see. The farms of America grew food that fed Zerathi soldiers. Everywhere, humans worked. And everywhere, humans died. The Zerathi had a simple system for managing conquered species. They divided the population into castes based on usefulness. The strongest and healthiest humans became labor workers. They mined, built, farmed, and manufactured. The intelligent ones became technical workers. They maintained machines, managed logistics, and solved problems their masters could not be bothered with. The children were taken to special facilities where they were raised to be loyal servants of the empire. Those who did not fit into any useful category were eliminated. In the first year of occupation, 2 billion humans died. Some died from violence, some died from starvation, some died from diseases that spread through the overcrowded camps. Some simply gave up and stopped living. By the 5th year, Earth's population had fallen from 8 billion to 4 billion. Half of humanity was gone, but the other half remained, and they were learning. In a labor camp outside what had once been Moscow, a man named Viktor Kozlov pushed a cart full of broken machine parts. He was thin and tired, his face lined with exhaustion. He had been a professor of physics before the invasion. Now he was just another worker, moving pieces of metal from one place to another. A Zerathi guard walked past him without a second look. To the guard, Victor was invisible, just another human animal doing its job. Victor smiled to himself. Hidden beneath the broken parts in his cart was a working Zerathi power cell. It had taken him 3 weeks to steal it, piece by piece, smuggling components from the recycling facility where he worked. Tonight, he would pass it to a contact who would take it to the underground. Tomorrow, scientists in a hidden bunker would study it, learn from it, and bring humanity one step closer to revenge. This was how the resistance worked. Slowly, carefully, invisibly. The Zerathi believed they had crushed all opposition. They were wrong. General Yuki Tanaka stood in the command center of the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, the hidden base beneath the Rocky Mountains where the resistance had been born. In 5 years, it had grown from a handful of survivors to a network that spanned the globe. They had people in every camp, every factory, every work detail. They had eyes everywhere the Zerathi looked and ears in places the aliens did not even know existed. "Report," she said. Colonel James Wright, her second in command, pulled up a holographic display. It showed a map of Earth marked with thousands of small dots, each one a resistance cell. "We have confirmed assets in every major population center," he said. "Our supply network is moving materials at a rate of approximately 200 kilograms per week. We have successfully extracted 17 Zerathi weapons, 3 shield generators, 2 communication devices, and the power cell that arrived last night. What about research? Dr. Chen's team has made a breakthrough." Wright's voice carried a hint of excitement, something that had become rare in the dark years. "They think they understand how the Zerathi shields work. More importantly, they think they know how to break them." Tanaka allowed herself a small smile. "Tell me, the shields are powered by a specific energy frequency. If we can generate a counter frequency, we can collapse the shield entirely. It's like," Wright searched for the right words, "it's like finding the right note to shatter glass. Every shield has a weakness. We just need to find the right note for each one. How long until we can build a weapon that uses this principle?" Dr. Chen estimates 2 more years of development. "We need more components, more power cells, more time." "We have time," Tanaka said. "The Zerathi think we are broken. Let them keep thinking that." She turned to look at a wall covered with photographs. Each photo showed a face, a human who had died in the invasion or the occupation that followed. There were thousands of them, and new ones were added every week. "Every day we wait, more of us die," she said quietly. "But every day we wait, we grow stronger." The aliens do not understand patience. They do not understand how long humans can hate. They do not understand that we are not waiting for rescue. We are building our own salvation. Far away from the bunker, in a labor camp in what had once been Germany, a young woman named Anna Schmidt was teaching children to read. This was forbidden. The Zerathi did not allow humans to educate themselves. An educated slave was a dangerous slave. But Anna had found a way. She worked in a food distribution center during the day. At night, she gathered the children of her camp in a hidden basement and taught them by candlelight. She taught them letters and numbers. She taught them history and science. And she taught them something else, something that was not in any book. She taught them to remember. Before the aliens came, she told them. Humans built towers that touched the clouds. We flew through the sky in metal birds. We sent people to walk on the moon. We created music and art and stories that made people laugh and cry. We were not slaves. We were free. The children listened with wide eyes. Most of them had been born after the invasion. They had never known a world without Zerathi masters. Freedom was just a word to them. Will we ever be free again? Asked a small boy named Peter. Anna looked at him. He was 7 years old. His father had died in the mines. His mother had been taken away last month and never came back. He had no one in the world except Anna and the other children in this room. Yes, she said. One day, we will be free. But it will not be given to us. We will have to take it. How? Anna smiled. It was not a happy smile. We wait, she said. We learn. We grow strong. And when the time comes, we fight. Not like before, not running at them with sticks and stones. We fight with their own weapons. We fight with their own technology. We fight smarter than they think we can. She reached under her coat and pulled out a small device. It looked like a Zerathi weapon, but smaller, cruder. It had been built in a secret workshop by resistance engineers using stolen parts. This is called hope, she said. Someday, we will have enough of these for everyone. And on that day, the Zerathi will learn what happens when you push humans too far. The children stared at the weapon with something new in their eyes. Something that had been beaten out of most humans during the occupation. It was hope. And it was dangerous. In orbit above Earth, the Zerathi occupation fleet continued its routine patrols. Commander Thexvul stood on the bridge of his cruiser and watched the planet below with bored contempt. He had been assigned to this post as a punishment. He had offended a superior officer and been sent to oversee a pacified world, the most boring duty in the Empire. Nothing ever happened on conquered planets. The natives worked, the resources flowed, and time passed in endless tedium. Commander, his sensor officer said, I am detecting unusual energy readings in the northern continent. Thexvul sighed. What kind of readings? Small power signatures. They appear and disappear quickly. They could be malfunctioning equipment. Or what? The sensor officer hesitated. Or hidden technology. Thexvul considered this for a moment. Hidden technology meant the humans were building something. That was supposed to be impossible. They were watched constantly, their movements tracked, their communications monitored. But the readings were there. Send a ground team to investigate, he said. Probably nothing. These creatures barely understood how to use their own primitive devices. I doubt they could do anything with ours. Yes, Commander. Thexvul turned back to the view screen and forgot about the matter entirely. This was a mistake. The ground team found nothing. The resistance had learned to hide their activities well. They knew when patrols were coming. They knew how to make power signatures disappear. They had spent 5 years learning every detail of how the Zerathi operated, their schedules, their habits, their blind spots. The occupation force saw only obedient workers. They did not see the hatred behind the lowered eyes. They did not hear the whispered plans. They did not notice that humans were changing. In a hidden laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. David Chen stared at a holographic model of a Zerathi shield generator. He had been studying alien technology for 5 years. He had aged 20 years in that time. His hair was gray, his eyes were tired, and his hands shook from too much coffee and too little sleep. But he was smiling. I've got it, he said to his team. I finally understand how their shields work. His assistant, a young woman named Maria Santos, looked up from her console. Really? The shields aren't just energy barriers. They're probability fields. They calculate the most likely trajectory of incoming threats and reinforce against them. That's why our weapons don't work. The shields predict where our bullets and missiles will go and block them before they arrive. So how do we beat that? Chen's smile widened. We stop being predictable. Their shields calculate based on straight-line trajectories and standard energy patterns. If we create weapons that fire in random patterns, weapons that even we cannot predict, the shields won't be able to calculate fast enough to stop them. Maria frowned. Weapons we can't predict? How do we aim them? We don't. We create a field of destruction so complete that aiming becomes unnecessary. We overwhelm their calculations with chaos. He pulled up a new diagram. I call it scatter fire technology. Instead of one bullet going one direction, imagine 1,000 fragments going in 1,000 directions at once. The shield might stop 900 of them, but 100 will get through, and 100 is enough. He turned to face his team. There were 12 of them, physicists, engineers, chemists, the best minds humanity had left. They had worked for 5 years in secret, knowing that if they were discovered, they would be killed immediately. This is just the beginning, Chen said. We can use the same principle for energy weapons, for missiles, for bombs. We can build an entire arsenal based on unpredictability, and the Zerathi won't know how to stop us because their entire military philosophy is based on calculating and controlling everything. When can we start building? Maria asked. We need more resources, more power cells, more time. I estimate 3 more years before we have functional prototypes. 3 more years. Maria closed her eyes. How many more of us will die in 3 years? Many, Chen admitted. But if we rush this, if we act before we're ready, we will lose everything. The Zerathi will crush us, and this time they will not leave survivors. We have one chance to do this right. One chance. Don't. He looked at the faces of his team. They were all exhausted. They had all lost people they loved. They all wanted the war to begin now. Today. This moment. I know it's hard, he said. I know you want revenge. I want it too. But revenge is patient. The best revenge is the one that succeeds. And we will succeed. I promise you that. Meanwhile, in the Resistance Command Center, General Tanaka was receiving reports from around the world. In Asia, Resistance cells had successfully sabotaged 3 mining operations, delaying ore shipments by weeks. In Europe, an underground network was smuggling children out of Zerathi education facilities before they could be fully indoctrinated. In Africa, farmers were secretly growing food for human consumption instead of alien exports. In South America, engineers were building hidden weapons caches in the ruins of old cities. Everywhere, humanity was resisting. Not openly, not yet, but in 1,000 small ways that the Zerathi never noticed. We are getting stronger, Colonel Wright reported. Our numbers have grown by 30% this year. We have weapons caches in every continent. We have people in key positions in the alien administration, and morale is higher than it's ever been. Morale is not enough, Tanaka said. We need weapons. We need a plan. We need a moment when we can strike and actually win. When? Tanaka looked at the map of Earth. So much had been lost. So many had died. But humanity was still here. Still fighting. Still hoping. Soon, she said. Dr. Chen says 3 more years. We can hold for 3 more years. We can build. We can prepare. We can wait. And then, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Everyone knew what would happen then. In the camps and the factories, in the mines and the fields. Humans continued to work and suffer and die. The Zerathi continued to watch them with contempt, seeing only beasts of burden, seeing only broken slaves. They did not see the fire in human eyes. They did not hear the whispers in the dark. They did not understand that every act of cruelty, every death, every moment of suffering was being recorded, remembered, and added to a debt that would one day be paid in full. The dark years were hard, but they were also necessary. In the darkness, humanity forged itself into something new, something harder, colder, and more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zerathi had conquered hundreds of species. They had turned proud warriors into obedient servants. They believed they had done the same to humanity. They were wrong. Humanity was not being broken. Humanity was being sharpened. Like a blade in a fire, the suffering burned away everything soft and weak. What remained was steel, and steel does not forget. In her command center, General Tanaka looked at the photographs on the wall one more time. Thousands of faces, thousands of deaths, thousands of reasons to keep fighting. 3 more years. She whispered to the dead. Wait for us. We are coming. And when we do, we will bring such fury that the galaxy itself will tremble. She turned off the lights and went to sleep. Above her, the Zerathi ships orbited peacefully, their crews unaware of the storm gathering below. They had no idea what was coming, but they would learn. Oh, they would learn. 6 years after the invasion, at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning Greenwich Mean Time, every Zerathi communication satellite orbiting Earth went dark. The blackout lasted only 14 seconds. That was enough. In those 14 seconds, the Zerathi occupation force was blind. Their sensors showed nothing. Their communications carried nothing. Their ships could not talk to their ground forces. Their ground forces could not talk to each other. And in those 14 seconds, humanity struck. Commander Thuxvol was sleeping in his quarters aboard the orbital cruiser when the alarm started screaming. He jumped from his bed and ran to the bridge, still pulling on his uniform. "Report!" he shouted. His tactical officer was staring at his console with a look of complete confusion. "Commander, I don't understand. Our satellites are back online, but we're receiving distress calls from the surface. Hundreds of them. What kind of distress calls? All kinds. Military installations under attack. Ground forces taking casualties. Supply depots destroyed." The officer looked up, his black eyes wide with something that might have been fear. "Commander, the humans are attacking." Thuxvol felt his blood go cold. "That's impossible. They have no weapons. They have no organization. They're slaves. They have weapons now, Commander, and they're using them." On the surface of Earth, the war for liberation had begun. In Berlin, a team of resistance fighters attacked the Zerathi Regional Command Center with weapons that should not have existed. Their guns fired not bullets, but clouds of metal fragments that moved in unpredictable patterns. Zerathi shields designed to stop direct attacks collapsed under the chaos. Alien soldiers fell by the dozens. In Beijing, resistance engineers activated a device they had spent 3 years building. It sent out a pulse that disrupted every piece of Zerathi technology within 10 kilometers. Vehicles stopped, weapons failed, communication devices went silent, and then the human soldiers came, armed with captured alien weapons and homemade explosives. In New York, in Moscow, in London, in Tokyo, in Cairo, in Sao Paulo, in every city, on every continent, humans rose up against their masters. General Yuki Tanaka watched the reports coming in from her command center. For 6 years, she had planned this night. For 6 years, she had gathered weapons, trained soldiers, positioned assets, and now, finally, the plan was unfolding. "Berlin Command Center is down," Colonel Wright reported. "Beijing garrison neutralized. London spaceport captured. We have control of 17 major cities, and climbing. Casualties? Heavy. We expected that. But we're inflicting heavier casualties on them." Tanaka nodded. She had known the cost would be high. Freedom was never free. But every human who died tonight died fighting. Not as a slave. "What about the orbital fleet?" she asked. "Still in chaos. Our communications blackout worked better than expected. They're struggling to coordinate their response. They'll recover soon. We need to press our advantage while we have it." In a labor camp outside Moscow, Viktor Kozlov, the former physics professor who had spent years smuggling alien technology, led a group of freed prisoners toward the camp's armory. They were armed with whatever they had been able to find: stolen weapons, improvised explosives, metal pipes, and rocks. It did not matter. They were fighting, and that was what mattered. A Zerathi soldier appeared in front of them, raising his weapon. Victor did not hesitate. He had waited 6 years for this moment. He raised his own weapon, a crude scatter gun built in a resistance workshop, and fired. The alien's shield flickered and died. The soldier looked down at his chest, at the dozens of small holes that had appeared there. He looked up at Victor with an expression of pure surprise. "Impossible," he whispered. "Nothing is impossible," Victor said. "You taught us that." He fired again. Across the planet, the same scene played out thousands of times. Zerathi soldiers who had grown comfortable in their role as occupiers suddenly found themselves facing enemies who were no longer helpless. The shields that had protected them for 6 years failed against weapons designed specifically to defeat them. The tactics that had worked against countless species were useless against an enemy that had studied them for years. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that conquered species stayed conquered. They had assumed that humans were like the hundreds of other races they had defeated, capable of accepting their place at the bottom of the galaxy. They were wrong. In the ruins of what had once been Chicago, Anna Schmidt, the woman who had taught children in secret, led a group of fighters toward a Zerathi communications tower. If they could capture it, the resistance would be able to broadcast across the entire continent. "Remember what I taught you," she said to her team. They were young. Many of them were the children she had educated in that hidden basement. They had grown up knowing only occupation. Now they were fighting for a freedom they had never experienced. "We remember," said Peter, the small boy who had once asked if they would ever be free. He was 13 now, and he carried a weapon almost as big as he was. We remember everything. The assault on the tower was brief and brutal. The Zerathi defenders never expected humans to attack such a heavily guarded target. They certainly never expected humans to be armed with weapons that could penetrate their shields. 20 minutes after the assault began, Anna stood at the tower's control console. The communications equipment was damaged but functional. She opened a channel to every Zerathi receiver on the continent. "My name is Anna Schmidt," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "I was a teacher before your empire came to Earth. For 6 years, I have watched my people suffer and die under your rule. For 6 years, I have waited for this moment." She paused. "Tonight, the humans of Earth have risen against you. We have weapons that can defeat your shields. We have soldiers who do not fear death. We have a fury that has been building for 6 years, and we are ready to unleash it." She smiled into the camera. "You thought you had broken us. You were wrong. You cannot break something that is willing to be shattered in order to cut you. You cannot defeat an enemy that would rather die than submit. You cannot conquer a species that knows how to hate." She leaned forward. "This is our world. We are taking it back. And when we are done here, we are coming for you. Every planet you have conquered, every species you have enslaved, every crime you have committed, we know about all of it. And we will make you pay for everything." She reached for the console. Earth is no longer a colony of the Zerathi Empire. Earth is the first battleground of the human-Zerathi War. And we will win this war. Not because we are stronger than you, not because we are smarter than you, but because we want victory more than we want life itself. She cut the transmission. In orbit, Commander Thexvul watched the broadcast with growing horror. This was not possible. This could not be happening. Humans were primitives, barely more than animals. They could not organize a planetary uprising. They could not build weapons that defeated Zerathi technology. They could not. "Commander." His tactical officer's voice cut through his thoughts. "Ground forces are reporting massive losses. We've lost contact with 40% of our installations. Send reinforcements. Call for orbital strikes. Our ground forces are too intermixed with the humans, Commander. We cannot strike without killing our own soldiers, and our reinforcements are having trouble reaching the combat zones. The humans have destroyed the road networks." Thexvul stared at the view screen. At the planet that had been a quiet conquest just hours ago, fires were burning across the night side. Human cities that had been work camps were now battlefields. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" No one answered him. On the ground, the battle raged for 3 days. The resistance had planned well. They knew they could not defeat the Zerathi in a straight fight even with their new weapons. They were outnumbered and outgunned. So they did not fight straight. They fought dirty. They used the terrain they knew better than any alien ever could. They attacked at night, when their knowledge of the darkness gave them an advantage. They set traps, ambushes, and diversions. They made every street, every building, every inch of ground a death trap for their enemies, and they used tactics the Zerathi had never seen. In one battle, a group of resistance fighters allowed themselves to be surrounded. The Zerathi commander ordered them to surrender. Instead, the fighters activated explosives they had strapped to their own bodies. The explosion killed 20 alien soldiers. In another battle, human soldiers retreated into a building and barricaded themselves inside. When the Zerathi forces followed them in, they found the building was filled with gas. The humans had already evacuated through hidden tunnels. The aliens had no time to escape before the spark ignited. These tactics horrified the Zerathi. They had a code of war, rules that all civilized species followed. You did not sacrifice your own soldiers deliberately. You did not use suicide attacks. You did not turn yourself into a weapon. Humans did not care about their rules. General Tanaka had explained it to her soldiers before the uprising. The Zerathi fight to win. We fight to destroy. There is a difference. A soldier who fights to win will retreat when the battle is lost. A soldier who fights to destroy will take as many enemies with them as possible. That is our advantage. They are afraid to die. We are not. It was true. After 6 years of occupation, after watching friends and family die in camps and mines, the humans who fought had already accepted their own deaths. They were not fighting for themselves. They were fighting for revenge. And a soldier who does not fear death is the most dangerous soldier in the galaxy. By the end of the third day, the Zerathi occupation force was in ruins. They had lost 40% of their ground troops. Their command structure had been shattered. Their communication networks were barely functional. Their supply lines had been cut, and worst of all, their morale was broken. For the first time in 10,000 years, Zerathi soldiers were afraid. Commander Thexvul made a decision that had never been made in the history of the Empire. He ordered a retreat. All ground forces, evacuate to orbit immediately. He broadcast. I repeat, evacuate to orbit. This is not a drill. We are withdrawing from the surface. His officers looked at him with shock. Commander, we cannot abandon a planet. One of them said. The Empire will. The Empire will what? Court-martial me for refusing to waste more soldiers? Look at those casualty reports. We have lost more troops in 3 days than we have lost in the last century of conquests. These humans are not like other species. They are something else. He turned to face his crew. I am sending a message to the Imperial fleet. We need reinforcements. Not a patrol force, not an occupation garrison, a war fleet. We need enough ships to crack this planet if necessary. You would destroy the planet? Kill all the humans? Thexvol's black eyes were cold. If that is what it takes, the evacuation took 12 hours. Zerathi dropships rose from the surface of Earth, carrying soldiers who had never known defeat until now. Many of them looked down at the blue planet with something that might have been fear. They left behind their dead. They left behind their equipment. They left behind their certainty that the Empire was invincible. When the last Zerathi ship reached orbit, the humans of Earth looked up at the sky and cheered. For the first time in 6 years, there were no aliens on their planet. For the first time in 6 years, they were free. General Tanaka stood in the ruins of New York City, the same place where High Lord Kethvan had walked 6 years ago, stepping over human corpses without a second glance. Now it was Zerathi corpses that littered the streets. We did it, Colonel Wright said. His voice was hoarse with exhaustion. We actually did it. We won a battle. Tanaka corrected him. Not the war. They will be back. They will bring more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. This is not over. Then what do we do? Tanaka looked up at the sky, at the distant lights of the Zerathi fleet still orbiting their world. We prepare. We build. We get ready for the next fight. And we make sure that when they come back, we are not just defending our world. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. When they come back, we will be ready to take the fight to them. You mean? I mean ships, Colonel. Our own ships. The Zerathi thought they were occupying a primitive planet. They left us alone with their technology for 6 years. They let us learn. They let us grow. And now we are going to use everything we learned to build a fleet that will make them regret ever coming to Earth. In the days that followed, humanity began to rebuild. Not the way things had been before that world was gone forever. They built something new. Something designed for one purpose. War. Factories that had produced goods for the Empire were retooled to build weapons. Mines that had extracted ore for alien markets now supplied human foundries. Scientists who had worked in secret now worked openly, designing ships and weapons based on everything they had learned from captured technology. Dr. David Chen stood in front of the first human-built spacecraft. It was small, ugly, and crude compared to Zerathi designs. But it worked, and it was just the beginning. This is the prototype, he told Tanaka. We're calling it the Revenge-class fighter. We can have 100 of them operational within a year, 1,000 within 2 years. What about larger ships? We're working on it. The breakthrough is the fold space drive. We figured out how they do it. Give us time, and we'll have ships that can travel between stars. Tanaka looked at the small, ugly spacecraft. It represented everything humanity had suffered for, everything they had lost, everything they were willing to sacrifice. Time, she said. How much time do we have? Our intelligence says the Empire will send a war fleet. A real one this time. Thousands of ships. They'll probably arrive within 2 years. Then we have 2 years. Tanaka turned to face her general staff. 2 years to build a fleet. 2 years to prepare our defenses. 2 years to turn Earth into a fortress that no alien armada can crack. She looked at each of them in turn. The Zerathi Empire has never lost a war. In 10,000 years, no species has ever defeated them. We are going to be the first. Not because we are special. Not because we are chosen. but because we have no other choice. If we lose, humanity dies. If we win, we live. It's that simple. She raised her fist. For every human who died in the invasion, for every human who died in the camps, for every child taken, every family destroyed, every life stolen, we will make them pay. And we will not stop until the Zerathi Empire is nothing but ash and memory. The officers raised their fists in response. Above them, the Zerathi fleet waited in orbit, watching, planning. They had sent a message to the Empire. Send reinforcements. The humans are not what we thought. The Empire had received the message, and the Empire was sending a response. A war fleet was being assembled. 12,000 ships. Enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets. The largest military force the Empire had deployed in centuries. They were coming to destroy humanity once and for all. They did not know that humanity was counting on exactly that. 2 years after the uprising, the Zerathi Empire sent its answer. High Admiral Zethraxis stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment, and watched his armada assemble. 12,000 warships, carrying 2 million soldiers, armed with enough weapons to crack continents. It was the largest military force the Empire had deployed in 500 years. The last time such a fleet had been assembled, it had been to crush a rebellion of 7 allied species. That war had lasted 3 months. This one, Zethraxis expected, would last 3 days. He was an old warrior, nearly 400 years old, with a record of victories that stretched back centuries. He had never lost a battle. He had never retreated. He had never shown mercy to an enemy, and none had ever been shown to him. When the reports had come from Earth, reports of impossible human weapons, of Zerathi soldiers dying by the thousands, of a forced evacuation, he had not believed them. Humans were primitives, cattle. The failure at Earth must have been caused by incompetent commanders. Nothing more. He would correct that failure personally. All ships report ready, High Admiral. His flag captain reported. The fleet awaits your command. Zethraxis nodded slowly. Begin the fold space jump. We arrive at Earth in 12 hours. I want the fleet in attack formation before we emerge from fold space. And our orders regarding the humans? The High Admiral's black eyes gleamed with cold satisfaction. Extermination, complete and total. We will burn their cities, destroy their infrastructure, and kill every last one of them. This species has proven itself too dangerous to enslave. Therefore, it will be eliminated. The Eternal Judgment entered fold space, followed by 12,000 ships of war. Earth would pay for its rebellion in blood. On Earth, General Yuki Tanaka received the news she had been expecting. Long-range sensors have detected a massive fold space signature. Colonel Wright reported. Estimated time of arrival, 11 hours. How many ships? We count approximately 12,000. The room went silent. Earth's newly built fleet numbered just over 300 ships. They were outnumbered 40-1. Tanaka showed no emotion. She had known this was coming. She had planned for it. Begin Operation Harvest, she ordered. For 2 years, Earth had been preparing for this moment. Not just building ships, though they had built hundreds of them. From small fighters to massive battle cruisers. They had also been building something else, something the Zerathi would never expect. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, in hidden facilities built by human hands, weapons of unimaginable power waited in silence. Orbital defense platforms circled Earth, armed with weapons based on captured Zerathi technology but improved by human innovation. Mines floated in carefully planned patterns around the solar system, invisible until they activated. And there was something else, something that had never been built before. A weapon so devastating that even its creators were afraid of it. They called it the Sun Gun. Dr. David Chen had designed it based on a simple principle. The sun was essentially an infinite source of energy. If that energy could be focused, directed, concentrated into a beam, it could destroy anything. The Sun Gun did not shoot projectiles or energy bolts. It shot a piece of the sun itself. Are all systems ready? Tanaka asked. All platforms armed and operational, Chen reported. The Sun Gun is charged and ready. The fleet is in position. We are as ready as we will ever be. Tanaka looked at the tactical display. 300 ships against 12,000. It seemed impossible. But then again, so had everything else humanity had accomplished. All personnel, all ships, all stations, she broadcast. This is General Tanaka. In approximately 11 hours, The largest enemy fleet in galactic history will arrive to destroy us. They believe we are primitive. They believe we are weak. They believe we cannot possibly defeat them." She paused. "They are wrong. 2 years ago, we rose up against our oppressors with weapons made in secret and hatred forged in suffering. We drove them from our world. We showed them that humanity will never submit, never surrender, never stop fighting. Today, we will show them something else." Her voice hardened. "Today, we will show them what happens when you threaten the existence of the human race. Today, we will teach them that there are some enemies you should never wake. Today, we will make them understand why their ancestors feared the darkness." She raised her hand. "All ships, all platforms, all weapons systems, prepare for battle. This is the day we have worked for. This is the moment that will decide whether humanity lives or dies. And I promise you this. Whatever happens today, the Zarathi Empire will never forget the price they paid for attacking Earth. Thank you. This video. And I promise you this." She lowered her hand. "Remember who we fight for. Remember every human who died under their rule. Remember, and let your memory become their nightmare." Tanaka out. The hours passed slowly. On Earth, people gathered in the streets, looking up at the sky. They knew what was coming. They knew that the next few hours would determine the fate of their species. Many prayed. Many held their families close. Many simply waited in silence, watching the stars. In the fleet, soldiers and sailors made their final preparations. Some wrote letters to loved ones. Some checked their weapons one last time. Some sat in silence, thinking about what they were about to do. Captain Sarah Chen, Dr. Chen's daughter, commander of the battlecruiser Remember, stood on her bridge and watched the countdown timer. The Remember was the flagship of humanity's fleet, the largest and most powerful ship they had ever built. It had been named for everyone who had died during the occupation, every human who had suffered, every human who had been killed. "Captain," her sensor officer said. "Fold space signatures detected. Multiple contacts." "How many?" "Thousands, ma'am, they're early." Sarah took a deep breath. "All hands, battle stations. This is it." The Zarathi fleet emerged from Fold space in perfect formation, a wall of ships stretching across millions of kilometers. Their weapons were already charged, their shields already raised. They expected resistance. They did not expect to lose. High Admiral Zethraxis surveyed the battlefield from his command throne. His sensors showed the human fleet 300 ships clustered around their homeworld like insects around a nest. "Pathetic," he said. "Is this really all they have managed to build? 300 ships against 12,000? They must know they cannot win. Perhaps they hope to negotiate," his flag captain suggested. "Negotiate?" Zethraxis laughed. It was a cold, empty sound. "There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. These creatures murdered our soldiers, destroyed our installations, and humiliated the Empire. They will die screaming. Every last one of them." He leaned forward. "All ships, advance. Destroy everything." The Zarathi fleet moved forward, a tide of death rolling toward Earth, and then the first mine detonated. It was a small weapon, no larger than a ground vehicle. It had been floating in space for months, invisible to sensors, waiting. When the first Zarathi cruiser passed within range, it activated. The explosion was nuclear. The cruiser's shields held against the blast itself, but the mine had never been designed to destroy ships with its explosion. It had been designed to create debris, thousands of metal fragments, each one traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Slammed into the cruiser's shields. The shields flickered, struggled, and failed. The cruiser exploded, and then another mine detonated, and another, and another. "Mines!" the flag captain shouted. "The humans have mined the entire approach. Raise shields to maximum. Destroy those weapons before." Another explosion. Another cruiser destroyed. The Zarathi fleet had run into the first of Earth's surprises. The minefield was not random. It had been designed by military scientists who had spent 2 years studying Zarathi ship movements, calculating optimal placement, creating a web of death that was almost impossible to navigate. In the first 10 minutes of the battle, the Zarathi lost 300 ships. They had not even reached firing range. Zethraxis stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "How is this possible? Our sensors detected nothing. The mines are shielded, sir. They only become visible when they activate. Then we push through. We accept the losses and push through." The Zerathi fleet continued its advance. Slower now, more cautious. Ships detonated around them as they moved, but they pressed forward. They had the numbers to absorb the losses. They would reach Earth eventually. And then the human fleet attacked. 300 ships launched from Earth's orbit, moving at speeds the Zerathi had never seen. Human ships were smaller, faster, and far more maneuverable than their alien counterparts. They darted between Zerathi capital ships like insects, firing weapons that the Empire had no defense against. The scatterfire technology that Dr. Chen had developed 2 years ago had been refined, improved, and weaponized beyond anything the Zerathi could have imagined. Human weapons did not fire single projectiles, they fired clouds of destruction that could not be predicted or blocked. The Remember led the charge. Captain Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, watching Zerathi ships die. Target the command ships, she ordered. Take out their leadership, and the fleet will fall into chaos. Yes, Captain. The Remember's main guns fired. A Zerathi battlecruiser's shields collapsed under the assault. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. Another target, Sarah said. Keep firing. The battle raged across thousands of kilometers. Zerathi ships fell by the hundreds, but they kept coming. Their numbers were simply too great. For every ship the humans destroyed, 10 more took its place. We're taking losses, Sarah's tactical officer reported. We've lost 40 ships. Keep fighting. We just need to buy time. Time for what, Captain? Sarah smiled. You'll see. In orbit around Earth, the defense platforms came online. They were massive structures, each one bristling with weapons that had taken years to design and build. They opened fire on the advancing Zerathi fleet, adding their firepower to the battle, but the real weapon was still waiting. General Tanaka watched the battle from her command center on Earth. The fleet was fighting well, but they could not hold forever. The Zerathi were pushing through, absorbing their losses, advancing toward Earth with relentless determination. It's time, she said. Activate the sun gun. On the far side of the sun, hidden from Zerathi sensors, a massive device powered up. It had been built in secret, transported in pieces, assembled by engineers who knew they might not live to see it used. It was humanity's final weapon, their last hope. The sun gun drew power from the sun itself, focusing solar energy through a series of amplifiers and lenses until it became something else, a beam of pure destruction that nothing in the known universe could survive. Dr. Chen watched the power readings climb. Target locked on the enemy flagship. Firing in 3, 2, 1. A beam of light shot across the solar system. It traveled at the speed of light itself, crossing the distance between the sun and the Zerathi fleet in minutes. High Admiral Zethraxis never saw it coming. The Eternal Judgment simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the largest and most powerful warship in the Zerathi fleet. The next moment, there was nothing but expanding gas and debris. The beam did not stop. It continued through the fleet, destroying everything in its path. 300 ships were vaporized in a single shot. The Zerathi fleet stopped. They had never seen anything like this. No weapon in the galaxy could do what they had just witnessed. It was impossible. It was terrifying. And it was just the beginning. Fire again, Tanaka ordered. Keep firing until they retreat or they die. The sun gun fired 3 more times. Each shot destroyed hundreds of Zerathi ships. The fleet that had arrived with 12,000 vessels was reduced to less than 8,000 in minutes. Commander Thexvul, who had survived the ground battle 2 years ago, stood on the bridge of his cruiser and watched the destruction around him. The High Admiral was dead. The command structure was shattered. Ships were dying by the hundreds. We have to retreat, he said. We cannot fight this. Retreat? His tactical officer said. We cannot retreat. The Empire will understand when they see these recordings. We are not fighting a primitive species. We are fighting something else entirely. Something that should not exist. He gave the order. All ships, withdraw. I repeat, all ships, withdraw. Fall back to safe distance, and regroup. The remaining Zerathi ships began to retreat, their fold space drives carrying them away from the massacre. But the human fleet pursued. Captain Sarah Chen pushed her engines to maximum. The Remember shot forward, closing the distance between itself and the fleeing enemy. They're retreating, her tactical officer said. We've won. We haven't won until they're destroyed, Sarah replied. Target the command ships. Don't let them escape. The Remember caught up to Commander Thexvul's cruiser at the edge of the solar system. The alien ship was damaged, its shields failing, its weapons depleted. Thexvul watched the human battlecruiser approach on his view screen. He recognized it, the ship called Remember. He understood, suddenly, why they had named it that. This is Commander Thexvul of the Zerathi Imperial Fleet. He broadcast on an open channel. I offer my surrender. I will give you any information you want. I will. This is Captain Chen of the Remember. Sarah's voice cut through his transmission. We don't want your surrender. We don't want your information. Then what do you want? There was a pause. We want you to watch. The Remember fired. Thexvul's cruiser exploded. The battle was over. Of the 12,000 ships that had come to destroy Earth, fewer than 4,000 escaped. The rest were debris, scattered across the solar system, a graveyard that would drift through space for eternity. Humanity had won. In her command center, General Tanaka received the final reports. The fleet had lost 107 ships. Thousands of human sailors had died, but Earth was safe. The invasion had been defeated. What now, General? Colonel Wright asked. Tanaka looked at the tactical display. It showed the retreating Zerathi ships, limping away toward their empire. It also showed something else, the navigation data they had captured from destroyed enemy vessels. Every Zerathi world, every colony, every military base, every trade route. Now, she said quietly, we go to them. She turned to face her staff. For 6 years they occupied our world. They killed billions of us. They made us slaves. And when we freed ourselves, they sent a fleet to exterminate us. They wanted to wipe humanity from the galaxy. Her voice was hard as steel. We're going to return the favor. Not because we want revenge, though we do, but because as long as the Zerathi Empire exists, they will keep coming. They will keep trying to destroy us. The only way to be truly safe is to make sure they can never threaten anyone again. She pulled up a star map. This is the Zerathi Empire. 400 worlds. Trillions of lives. They built their civilization on conquest and slavery. They believed they were invincible. They were wrong. She pointed to a world at the edge of the map. We start here. A minor colony. Minimal defenses. We take it. We strip it of resources. We move on. Then the next world. And the next. We don't stop until we reach their homeworld. General, Wright said carefully. Are you talking about conquering the entire Zerathi Empire? No. Tanaka's eyes were cold. I'm talking about destroying it. The room was silent. They made us what we are, Tanaka said. They taught us to hate. They taught us to fight. They taught us that mercy is weakness and compassion is death. Well, they were good teachers, and now they're going to learn from their own lessons. She raised her hand. Prepare the fleet. We leave within the month. The hunters have become the hunted, and in the depths of space, the survivors of the Zerathi Armada fled toward home, carrying news of their impossible defeat. They did not know that the humans were following. They did not know that the war was just beginning, and they did not know that by the time it was over, their empire would be nothing but ash. The Zerathi Empire had stood for 10,000 years. It had conquered 400 worlds. It had crushed every species that dared to resist. It had never known defeat, never known fear, never known what it felt like to be prey instead of predator. Now it was learning. 3 years after the Battle of Earth, the human fleet arrived at the first Zerathi colony world. It was called Vexthal, a mining planet on the edge of the Empire. The garrison there numbered 10,000 soldiers. They had heard stories about what had happened at Earth, but they did not believe them. Humans were primitives. Whatever had happened at Earth must have been exaggerated. They discovered the truth when human ships emerged from fold space and began their attack. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Vexthal belonged to humanity. The garrison was dead. The mining facilities were captured, and a message was broadcast across the empire. We are coming. General Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the... Remember, she had taken personal command of the flagship after Captain Sarah Chen had been promoted to lead a battle group. Tanaka looked at the conquered world on her view screen and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Send the workers home, she ordered. Any non-Zerathi species on this planet is free to leave. Provide them with transport to wherever they want to go. Her aide, Colonel Wright, nodded. And the Zerathi civilians? There are no Zerathi civilians. Every adult Zerathi is trained for combat from childhood. They are all soldiers, even the ones who don't wear uniforms. They stay. What do we do with them? Tanaka turned to face him. Her eyes were hard. The same thing they did to us. The Zerathi of Vexthal were put to work in the mines they had once overseen. They dug ore for their new human masters. They labored under the same conditions they had imposed on countless conquered species. And they learned what it felt like to be slaves. Some humans objected. They said humanity should be better than its enemies. They said revenge would only make humans as bad as the Zerathi. Tanaka listened to them. She understood their arguments. She even respected them, but she did not change her orders. We are not doing this because we enjoy it, she told her critics. We are doing this because it is necessary. The Zerathi understand only one thing: power. If we show them mercy, they will see it as weakness. They will regroup, rebuild, and come for us again. The only way to end this war is to break them so completely that they can never recover. She looked at the photographs on her wall, the thousands of human faces, the dead of Earth. Besides, she said quietly, they earned this. The human offensive continued. World after world fell. The Empire tried to mount a defense, but they were fighting an enemy unlike any they had faced before. Human tactics were unpredictable, brutal, and utterly without mercy. Human soldiers did not surrender. When surrounded, they fought to the death and took as many enemies with them as possible. Human ships did not retreat. When outgunned, they charged forward, turning themselves into weapons. The Zerathi military code had rules about warfare. Humans did not care about their rules. On the colony world of Texnar, a Zerathi garrison commander offered to surrender. He expected to be taken prisoner, treated according to the customs of war. Instead, the human commander simply said, "We don't take prisoners," and ordered the attack to continue. The garrison was wiped out to the last soldier. Word spread through the Empire. The humans were coming, and they showed no mercy. They did not negotiate. They did not accept surrender. They killed everyone who fought against them and enslaved everyone who didn't. Fear spread faster than the human fleet. On Zerathi worlds that had never seen human soldiers, civilians began to panic. They had heard the stories: impossible weapons, suicidal tactics, enemies who laughed as they died. The humans were not just conquerors. They were a plague, a nightmare, a force of destruction that could not be reasoned with or stopped. The Imperial Council met in emergency session on Zereth Prime, the capital world of the Empire. The council chamber had seen 10,000 years of victory. Now it saw something new: despair. "We must sue for peace," one counselor said. "The humans cannot be defeated. We must offer them whatever they want, in exchange for ending this war." "What do they want?" another counselor asked. "We have sent diplomatic messages. They do not respond. We have offered terms. They ignore them. We have tried to negotiate. They simply continue attacking. Then what do we do?" No one had an answer. High Lord Kethvon, the same commander who had led the original invasion of Earth, now ancient and broken, rose from his seat. He had been called out of retirement to advise the council. He had seen the humans at their weakest. He understood what they had become. "There is nothing we can do," he said. His voice was tired, hollow. "I conquered their world 8 years ago. I looked at them and saw animals. I was wrong. They were not animals. They were sleeping predators. We woke them. And now they will not stop until we are extinct. There must be something. There is nothing." Kethvon's black eyes were empty. "I watched a human woman beat her fists against my armor in New York 8 years ago. She was crying, asking why we had done this to her people. Do you know what I told her? I told her we did it because we wanted her planet. Because that was all the reason the Empire needed." He laughed bitterly. "Well, now they want our planets, and they have exactly the same reason we had. We taught them this. We created them. And now they will destroy us." He sat down heavily. "Prepare the defenses of Zereth Prime. It is the only world that matters now. Make the humans pay dearly for it. But know this: when they come, and they will come, it will be the end." The council sat in silence. 4 years after leaving Earth, the human fleet arrived at Zereth Prime. The capital world of the Empire was beautiful, a planet of silver cities and crystal towers, home to 30 billion Zerathi. It had never been attacked in 10,000 years. It had been protected by the mightiest fleet in the galaxy, defended by the most advanced weapons ever created. None of that mattered anymore. General Tanaka looked at the planet on her view screen. This was it. The heart of the Empire that had conquered Earth, that had killed billions of humans, that had made her people slaves. After 8 years, she had finally reached it. Fleet status, she said. All ships in position, General. We have 1,200 vessels. The Zerathi have approximately 4,000 defending the planet. And the orbital defenses? Extensive. This will be the hardest battle we have ever fought. Tanaka nodded. She had expected nothing less. The Zerathi would throw everything they had into defending their homeworld. They would fight with the desperation of a species facing extinction. Good. She wanted them to fight. She wanted them to feel what her people had felt during the invasion of Earth. The hopelessness, the despair, the knowledge that no matter how hard they struggled, they could not win. Open a channel to the planet, she ordered. All frequencies. Channel open, General. Tanaka stepped forward. She was 60 years old now. Her hair was gray, her face lined with age and stress, but her eyes were still sharp, still hard, still burning with the fury that had driven her for 8 years. People of Zerath Prime, she said. I am General Yuki Tanaka of the United Human Fleet. 8 years ago, your empire invaded my world. You killed billions of my people. You enslaved the survivors. You treated us like animals. She paused. Now we have come to your world. We have destroyed your fleets, conquered your colonies, and broken your empire. And now we are here, at the heart of everything you built. Her voice was cold. You had 10,000 years to learn compassion. You chose cruelty instead. You had 400 worlds to share with the galaxy. You chose conquest instead. You had the power to lift up other species. You chose to crush them instead. She raised her hand. You made your choices. Now we make ours. The Zerathi Empire ends today. Your civilization ends today. Everything you built, everything you achieved, everything you were, it ends today. She lowered her hand. We are not here to negotiate. We are not here to accept surrender. We are here to do what you tried to do to us. Wipe you from existence. You will receive exactly the mercy you showed us. She turned to her tactical officer. None. The transmission ended. The Battle of Zerath Prime began. It was the largest space battle in galactic history. Over 5,000 ships engaged in a conflict that lasted 48 hours. The Zerathi fought with everything they had, knowing that this was their final stand. Human ships fought with the same ferocity they had shown across 400 worlds, knowing that victory here would mean the end of the war. Ships exploded in clouds of fire. Weapons tore through shields and armor. Debris fields spread across millions of kilometers. Thousands died on both sides, but slowly, inevitably, the Zerathi defense crumbled. Their ships were powerful, but human tactics were unpredictable. Their weapons were advanced, but human technology had evolved over 8 years of war. Their soldiers were brave, but human soldiers did not fear death. One by one, the Zerathi warships fell. The orbital defense platforms were destroyed. The minefield was swept away. And finally, the path to the planet was clear. General Tanaka gave the order. Begin the bombardment. The human fleet opened fire on Zerath Prime. The first salvo targeted military installations. Defense batteries, command centers, weapons factories, all of them destroyed in minutes. The second salvo targeted infrastructure, power plants, transportation hubs, communication networks, the systems that kept a civilization running, reduced to rubble. And then the third salvo began. Cities burned. 30 billion Zerathi screamed as fire fell from the sky. The crystal towers shattered. The silver cities melted. Everything the Empire had built over 10,000 years was consumed in a single day. Some humans in the fleet looked away. They had signed up to fight a war, not to commit genocide. They had believed in justice, not extermination. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her battle cruiser and watched the destruction with a stone face. She thought about her father, Dr. David Chen, who had died 2 years ago, killed in a Zerathi ambush during the campaign. She thought about her mother, who had died in the invasion of Earth when Sarah was just a teenager. She thought about everyone she had lost. Is this right? Her tactical officer asked quietly. Killing billions of civilians? Sarah considered the question. They killed billions of ours, she said finally. When we were helpless, when we had done nothing to threaten them, they invaded our home and murdered our people because they wanted our planet, because that was all the reason they needed. She turned to face her officer. I don't know if this is right. I'm not sure there is a right in a war like this, but I know this. As long as the Zerathi Empire exists, they will never stop trying to destroy us. They will rebuild. They will rearm. They will come for Earth again. The only way to protect humanity is to make sure they can never threaten anyone again. She looked back at the burning planet. So no, I don't know if this is right, but I know it's necessary. And I know that I'd rather live with this guilt than watch my children die in the next Zerathi invasion. The bombardment lasted 3 days. When it was over, Zerath Prime was a dead world. The atmosphere was choked with ash. The oceans boiled. The cities were craters. 30 billion Zerathi were gone, not conquered, not enslaved, but erased from existence. The empire that had stood for 10,000 years was finished. General Tanaka walked through the ruins of what had once been the Imperial Palace. The crystal towers had collapsed into piles of slag. The council chamber where the Empire's leaders had plotted the conquest of galaxies was now a hole in the ground. She found the body of High Lord Kethvan in the rubble. The old warrior had not fled, had not hidden. He had stood on the steps of the palace as the bombs fell, watching the death of everything he had built. Tanaka looked down at his corpse for a long moment. "You were right," she said quietly. "That day in New York, when you told that woman why you invaded Earth, you had something we wanted. That was your reason. Now you know our reason." She turned and walked away. The war was over. In the years that followed, humanity did not become conquerors. They had learned too well what conquest led to. Instead, they became something else. Guardians. The species that had been enslaved by the Zerathi Empire were freed. The worlds that had been occupied were returned to their original inhabitants. The technology that had been hoarded by the Empire was shared freely. Humanity built a new order in the galaxy, not an empire, but a confederation. A community of free species, working together, protecting each other. They called it the Human Concord. The Concord had one unbreakable rule: never again. Never again would any species be allowed to conquer another. Never again would any power be permitted to build an empire on the backs of slaves. Never again would the galaxy know the horrors that the Zerathi had inflicted, and if anyone tried, the humans would stop them. Across the galaxy, species looked toward the small blue world that had done the impossible. Some felt hope the monsters that had oppressed them for generations were finally gone. Others felt fear if the humans could destroy the Zerathi. What else might they be capable of? Both reactions were appropriate. General Yuki Tanaka lived to see the Concord established. She lived to see the first generation of humans who had never known war, never known occupation, never known what it was like to be slaves. She lived to see humanity take its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as protectors. She died at the age of 92, surrounded by her family, at peace. Her last words were simple: remember, always remember. And humanity did remember. They remembered the invasion, the occupation, the dark years. They remembered the uprising, the war, the terrible price of victory. They remembered what they had done to survive, the things they were proud of and the things that still haunted them. But most of all, they remembered why they had fought. Not for conquest, not for power, not for revenge, though revenge had been part of it. In the beginning, they had fought because they had no choice. They had fought because the alternative was extinction. They had fought because giving up was not something humans knew how to do. On Earth, in every city, monuments stood to those who had died. Billions of names, carved in stone, remembered forever. School children learned the history of the war not as glorification, but as warning. This is what happens when species treat each other as cattle. This is the cost of cruelty. This is why we must be better. And in the deepest vaults of the human Concord, locked away where only a few could access it, the complete records of the Zerathi Empire were preserved. Every crime, every atrocity, every world they had conquered, and species they had enslaved. A reminder of why the Empire had to fall. A warning of what humanity was capable of, if pushed too far. In the end, the Zerathi had been right about one thing. They had said that humans were different from other species. They had said that humans had a capacity for violence that was unusual, even by galactic standards. They had just been wrong about what that meant. It meant that humanity could be the greatest threat the galaxy had ever seen or the greatest protector. It all depended on how they were treated. The Zerathi had chosen to make enemies of humanity. They had invaded, conquered, enslaved, and murdered. They had pushed humans to the breaking point and then pushed harder. And humanity had broken, but not in the way the Zerathi expected. Humanity had broken free, broken through, broken their enemies so thoroughly that nothing remained but dust and memory. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day, an ancient human truth, spoken in 1,000 languages across 1,000 worlds. Do not disturb the sleeping bear. Do not poke the wasp nest. Do not, under any circumstances, give humanity a reason to fight, because humans never forgot, humans never forgave, and when humans decided something needed to be destroyed, it was destroyed, completely, utterly, without mercy. The Zerathi Empire had invaded Earth, humanity had obliterated them, and the galaxy would never forget it. The message arrived at 3:14 Earth Standard Time. Admiral Tom stood frozen as the holographic display showed only static where New Haven Colony should be. His weathered face, marked by 40 years of military service, revealed nothing. But his hands, clenched into fists at his sides, betrayed his rage. "Play it again," he ordered. His voice was quiet, dangerous. The young officer tapped the console. The recording began once more. "This is New Haven Colony. We are under attack. Unknown vessels have entered orbit. They're not responding to..." The transmission cut to sounds of explosions, screams, then silence. 12 million people. Gone. "Analysis confirms, sir," said Commander Pete, his normally cheerful face now ashen. "New Haven has been completely destroyed. The colony, the orbital stations, everything. There's nothing left but debris." "Admiral." Tom nodded once. "Who did this?" "The energy signatures match Void Empire weapons. No question." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. The Void Empire, ancient, arrogant, and until now, merely dismissive of humanity. In 200 years of space exploration, humans had established peaceful colonies on 47 worlds. They had encountered 15 alien civilizations. Some were friendly, some neutral, but the Void Empire had always viewed the younger races as irrelevant pests at best, threats at worst. "Get me the Council, now." The United Systems Government Emergency Chamber buzzed with tension. 50 representatives from Earth and the colonies sat around the massive table. Some attended via secure hologram. All faces showed the same mix of shock and fury. President Laura, a small woman with steel-gray hair, stood at the head of the table. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but her voice steady. "Admiral Tom will present what we know about the attack on New Haven." The Admiral stepped forward. Behind him, the wall screens filled with images. The burning colony, fragments of ships, and intercepted Void Empire communications. 12 hours ago, New Haven Colony was destroyed by a fleet of 30 Void Empire warships. No warning, no demands. He paused. "We recovered fragments of their battle plans from destroyed ships. This was not a random attack. The Void Empire has labeled us a future threat to be preemptively pacified." Gasps filled the room. A representative from Mars stood up. "Are they planning more attacks?" "Yes," Admiral Tom said simply. "Their documents show plans to attack our colonies at Gateway, New Terra, and Horizon within the week. After that, they aim to systematically eliminate all human presence in space before striking Earth itself." The room erupted in shouted questions. President Laura raised her hand for silence. "What are our options, Admiral?" Tom took a deep breath. This moment had been planned for, prepared for, but he had hoped it would never come. "Madam President, representatives of humanity, it is time to drop the veil." The room fell silent. The veil, humanity's greatest secret. For a century, Earth had projected an image of minimal military capability, hiding its true strength from the galaxy. When we first encountered alien life, we recognized a pattern from our own history. Tom continued. Technological civilizations that openly displayed their military power often faced coalitions formed against them out of fear. So we made a choice. We would appear weaker than we are. He tapped his console. The screens changed to show massive shipyards hidden inside hollowed-out moons, asteroid bases, and enormous fleets kept in dimensional pocket spaces, all invisible to outside detection. While we traded openly with simple ships, built apparent colonies with basic defenses, we were preparing. Every mining operation was also creating warship components. Every research outpost was developing military technology. We now possess the largest fleet in known space, with weapons generations beyond what even the Void Empire can field. President Laura nodded slowly. The Veil policy was created to give us time to establish ourselves without appearing threatening, but now we face extinction if we don't act. The Void Empire believes they're eliminating a minor annoyance, Tom said. They expect us to beg for mercy or fight a hopeless battle with our few visible defense ships. They have no idea what's coming. Defense. Minister Jack, a burly man with a scarred face, leaned forward. How quickly can we deploy? The emergency war protocol has been in place since we began expanding into space. Every ship we've built can be fully armed and launched within 24 hours. How many ships are we talking about? Asked a colony representative. Admiral Tom's face was grim. 900,000 warships, plus support vessels. The room fell silent again, this time in awe. Most representatives had known humanity had secret military strength, but few knew the true scale. President Laura broke the silence. We need to vote. The deployment of our full military strength would end the Veil forever. The galaxy will know our true power. This cannot be undone. The vote took less than a minute. Unanimous approval. President Laura's voice was solemn. Admiral Tom, you are authorized to activate the emergency war protocol. May God have mercy on our enemies, because we will not. As Admiral Tom left the council chamber, he was joined by Fleet Commander Jane, his most trusted officer and friend for 20 years. It's really happening, she said quietly. Yes. Tom's face was stone. Send the orders. Every hidden base, every secret shipyard, full activation. Jane nodded. And the diplomatic approach? One chance. Send Mark to their commander. Standard, peace terms. They'll refuse. I know. But we'll have given them the chance. After that. His eyes hardened. After that, they learn why humanity survived its bloody history to reach the stars. Across human space, hidden installations hummed to life. Inside asteroids, beneath planetary oceans, and within hollow moons, massive doors opened. Ships that had never seen space were brought to launch position. On the command station codenamed Hammer, Fleet Commander Jane watched as thousands of status indicators changed from dormant red to active green. Workers swarmed over vessels, attaching weapon systems that had been stored separately. Pilots and crews rushed to their ships. On the main screen, a counter ticked upward as each vessel reported ready status. 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. In the grand palace of the Void Empire, Emperor Draz received the human diplomat with amused contempt. The Emperor's purple-scaled body dwarfed the human, and his four eyes blinked independently as he looked down at the small pink creature. You come to beg for your species' life, the Emperor rumbled. Diplomat Mark, a gray-haired man with calm eyes, bowed slightly. I come to offer peace terms. Your colony was destroyed as a warning, the rest will follow. There are no terms to discuss. Mark unfolded a small device that projected a document. We propose a treaty. Human colonies will maintain a demilitarized zone near your borders. We ask only that you cease hostile actions. Emperor Draz laughed, a sound like grinding stones. You have 5 patrol ships in this sector. We have thousands. Your species will be remembered as a footnote in our glorious history. Mark's face showed nothing, but his eyes turned cold. This is your only warning. Cease all military action against humanity. Or what? Sneered the Emperor. Or we will respond with appropriate force. The throne room filled with laughter. The Emperor waved a massive hand. Take this creature away. Prepare the fleet to move against their colony at Gateway. As guards approached, Mark spoke one last time, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Remember this moment, Emperor Draz. Remember you were given a choice. Back aboard Hammer Station, Admiral Tom received the report of the failed peace mission. As expected, he said quietly. He turned to the communications officer. Send the launch order. Throughout human space, hidden bays opened. Ships rose from ocean depths, emerged from mountain hangars, and descended from orbital cloaking fields. The counter on Jane's screen continued to climb. 500,000, 700,000, 800,000. Admiral Tom stood at the main viewport, watching as his own command ship, Judgment, powered up its weapons. His mind went to New Haven, to the millions dead, to the peace humanity had sought for 2 centuries. All ships report ready, Admiral, Jane said, her voice tight with emotion. 900,000 warships awaiting your command. Tom nodded slowly. The galaxy thinks it knows us. Today they learn the truth. He straightened his uniform and gave the order that would change history. All ships launch. Weapons free. Show them what humanity is capable of when provoked. As the massive fleet moved into formation, Admiral Tom whispered to himself, "This is for New Haven." Captain Bill watched from the bridge of the destroyer Retribution as thousands of warships moved into formation around him. For 15 years he had trained for this day, commanding a ship that had never left its hidden dock inside an asteroid belt near Gateway Colony. Now his vessel glided through space alongside countless others, weapons hot and shields raised. "Status report," he ordered, his voice calm despite the hammering of his heart. "All systems at full power, Captain," replied First Officer Lisa. "The fleet is forming up. We're assigned to Battle Group 7 under Commander Jane." The massive view screen showed waves of ships stretching beyond sight. Cruisers, destroyers, dreadnoughts, and carriers. Human engineering at its finest, built in secret over decades. "Any word from Gateway Colony?" Bill asked. "They've completed evacuation. Civilian ships are moving to safe coordinates." Bill nodded. Unlike New Haven, Gateway had received warning. No more innocent lives would be lost if he could help it. "Incoming. Transmission from Hammer Station," the communications officer announced. The screen changed to show Fleet Commander Jane's stern face. "Battle Group 7, this is Commander Jane. The Void Empire fleet will reach Gateway in 6 hours. Our intelligence shows they've sent 50 warships expecting minimal resistance." A cold smile touched her lips. "We're going to give them a proper welcome. Battle Group 7 will form the tip of the spear." Emperor Draz lounged on his command throne aboard the Imperial flagship, Eternal Dominance. Around him, officers monitored, screens showing the approach to the human colony world. "How long until we reach the target?" he asked, stretching his massive scaled limbs. 4 hours, Emperor," replied General Cull, his top military advisor. "Our scouts report only 3 human defense ships near the colony." Draz laughed. "Such weak creatures. They don't even try to defend themselves properly." General Cull shifted uncomfortably. "My Emperor, there have been some unusual energy readings from the outer system. Perhaps we should—" "Are you suggesting these humans pose a threat?" Draz interrupted, his 4 eyes narrowing. "No, Emperor. But caution has kept our empire strong for 10,000 years." "Caution is for the weak," Draz sneered. "These humans are primitive. Their ships are toys. Their weapons are barely worth mentioning." A junior officer approached and bowed deeply. "Emperor, we've detected unusual movement in the asteroid field ahead." "Show me," Draz ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, showing distant dots of light emerging from behind asteroids and moons. "Magnify," the Emperor commanded. As the image zoomed in, silence fell across the bridge. Not 3 ships, but hundreds were moving into formation. Behind them more appeared, then more. "What is this?" Draz roared, rising from his throne. General Cull's face had gone pale beneath his scales. "My Emperor, those are warships, human warships." "Impossible," Draz snarled. "Our intelligence said they have no significant fleet." The sensor officer's voice shook as he reported. "Emperor, we're detecting more vessels appearing throughout the system. Current count exceeds 3,000 ships." 3,000? Emperor Draz sank back onto his throne, his confidence wavering for the first time. Aboard Hammer Station, Admiral Tom and Fleet Commander Jane watched the Void Empire's fleet come to a confused halt. "They've spotted Battle Group 7, Jane said with satisfaction. "Just the tip of the iceberg," Tom replied. "Are the dimensional gates ready?" "Yes, Admiral. Ready to bring in the rest of the fleet." Tom nodded. "The Void Empire thinks they know what they're facing now. Let's show them how wrong they are." He pressed a button on his command console. "All battle groups. Execute Jump Protocol Alpha." "On." The Void flagship alarm suddenly blared. "Emperor!" the sensor officer cried. "Spatial anomalies detected all around us." Before their eyes, space itself seemed to tear open. Massive portals of swirling energy appeared, surrounding the Void fleet. From each portal emerged hundreds of human warships, weapons already charging. "How many?" Emperor Draz whispered, his arrogance replaced by growing fear. 10,000. 20,000. The count continued climbing as more ships poured through the dimensional gates. 50,000 ships and still counting. General. Cull stared in horror. "This is impossible. We've monitored them for decades. Where did these ships come from?" On the view screen, the human vessels moved with perfect coordination, forming a massive sphere around the Void fleet. There was no escape. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. Emperor Draz straightened his massive frame. Even faced with unexpected resistance, he was still the ruler of the greatest empire in the galaxy. "Put it through, Admiral." Tom's face appeared on the screen. His expression was like stone. "Emperor Draz," he said quietly. "You were warned." Draz forced a laugh. "Impressive display, human. I didn't know your kind could hide toys so well. But you face the Void Empire, rulers of 1,000 worlds. Your death will still come, just not as quickly as planned." "You destroyed New Haven Colony," Tom replied, his voice flat. 12 million innocent lives. No warning, no mercy. "Mercy is for the weak," Draz sneered. "Then you will receive none." The Admiral's eyes hardened. "The ships you see are merely the vanguard. Even now, the rest of our fleet moves against your empire. Your border stations have already fallen. Your colonies are being evacuated. Not destroyed as you would do to ours, but evacuated. We are not monsters despite what you believe." "You're bluffing," Draz said, but doubt crept into his voice. Admiral Tom's image was replaced by live feeds from across Void Empire space. Massive human fleets surrounded key worlds. Void military bases burned. Defense stations exploded silently in the vacuum of space. "This is only the beginning." Tom's voice continued over the images. "You thought humanity weak because we did not flaunt our strength. You mistook our patience for cowardice, our restraint for inability." The screen returned to Admiral Tom's face. "Surrender now, and your people will be spared. Continue to fight, and the Void Empire will cease to exist by day's end." Emperor Draz cut the transmission with a roar of rage. "All ships, open fire, destroy them all." The Void fleet's weapons blazed, energy beams lancing out toward the human ships. Most splashed harmlessly against advanced shields that glowed briefly but held firm. "Their shields are too strong," the weapons officer cried. "Impossible." Draz smashed his fist against his throne. "Our weapons can cut through any known defense." The human ships didn't immediately return fire. Instead, they continued to tighten their formation around the Void fleet, like predators circling wounded prey. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Bill watched the Void weapons dissipate against their shields. "Targeting solutions ready, Captain," First Officer Lisa reported. Bill nodded grimly. "Target their weapons and propulsion systems only. Disable, don't destroy." "Sir?" Lisa looked surprised. "Those are Admiral Tom's orders. We're better than them. We don't kill without need." Bill's eyes were hard. "But we will make sure they can never threaten humanity again." He took a deep breath. "All ships in Battle Group 7, you may fire when ready." Throughout space, the message spread from system to system. Alien civilizations watched in shock as humans, the quiet newcomers, the peaceful traders, revealed their true power. The Galactic Council called an emergency session as reports flooded in. 900,000 human warships had emerged simultaneously across the galaxy. The greatest military force ever seen in the history of space travel had appeared overnight. In the council chamber, representatives from 40 alien civilizations watched in stunned silence as massive human fleets took control of every major trade route, jump point, and strategic location. The humans, whispered a delegate from the ancient Altair Confederation. They were hiding this all along? An aide rushed in with a new report. The Void Empire fleet has surrendered at Gateway. Emperor Draz has been captured. How long did the battle last? Asked the council leader. The aide checked the report twice to be sure. 7 minutes. As fear spread through the chamber, a human representative entered for the first time. The room fell silent. People of the Galactic Council, she said calmly. Humanity comes in peace, we always have. But now you know what happens when that peace is broken. The galaxy would never be the same again. News of the Void Empire's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, alien species watched in stunned silence as their information networks displayed the same impossible images. Countless human warships appearing from nowhere, overwhelming the Void Empire's forces in minutes. But the story was just beginning. Admiral Tom stood before the holographic map in Hammer Station's war room. It showed the entire galaxy, with human fleets represented as blue dots and known hostile forces as red. The map was awash with blue. Emperor Draz has been secured, reported Fleet Commander Jane as she entered. He's being held aboard the prison ship Justice, with the highest-ranking Void officers. And the rest of their fleet? Tom asked. Most surrendered after their flagship was captured. There were a few fanatics who tried to fight. She hesitated. We disabled their ships with minimal casualties. Tom nodded with approval. The Void Empire homeworld? Jane tapped a control, enlarging a section of the map. Our forces have secured the system. Civilian populations are untouched. Their military installations have been neutralized. Good. Tom studied the map thoughtfully. But we have another problem. He pointed to 2 flashing regions of space. The Creel and Saran empires have mobilized their fleets. Intelligence suggests they're hoping to take advantage of the chaos. Jane frowned. They were supposed to be neutral. They've been secretly supplying the Void Empire for years. Our intelligence units found proof in Draz's records. Tom's eyes hardened. They hoped the Void Empire would eliminate humanity, clearing the way for their own expansion. What are your orders, Admiral? Tom straightened his uniform. Spring the trap. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Bill received new orders. His ship, along with Battle Group 7, was being redirected. The Creel Empire? First Officer. Lisa asked in surprise. I thought we were only fighting the Void Empire. It seems the Creel have chosen sides, Bill replied grimly. They're moving their fleet toward our colony at Horizon. They think we're too busy with the Void Empire to defend it. They don't know what they're facing, Lisa said. Bill's face was solemn. No, and that's the tragedy here. If these empires had just left us alone, we would have remained peaceful traders. Now they'll all learn what humanity is capable of when provoked. The view screen showed their battle group changing course, joined by thousands more ships emerging from dimensional gates. The Retribution's engines hummed with power as they accelerated toward their new target. In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, pandemonium reigned. Representatives from 40 species talked over each other, their voices rising in fear and confusion. How did we not know? Demanded the Pelleran ambassador, his tentacles waving in agitation. How could humans hide such military power? They've been planning this for decades, hissed the Trell representative, building their forces in secret while pretending to be peaceful traders. The council leader, an ancient being from the respected Mithran species, called for order. We must not jump to conclusions. The humans only attacked after the Void Empire destroyed one of their colonies. But 900,000 warships, exclaimed another representative. No civilization has ever fielded such a force. It's unprecedented. Hush fell over the chamber as the doors opened. The human representative, a tall woman named Anna, entered calmly. Representatives of the Galactic Council, she began. her voice clear and steady. "I understand your concerns, but I must correct some misconceptions." She activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed the destroyed colony of New Haven. "This was an unprovoked attack on a peaceful human settlement," she said. 12 million civilians, dead. The Void Empire planned to systematically eliminate all human presence in the galaxy." The council members shifted uncomfortably. "For 2 centuries, humanity sought only peaceful coexistence," Anna continued. "We built our military in secret not out of treachery, but from painful lessons in our own history. Displaying overwhelming force often triggers fear and preemptive attacks from others." The Mithran Council leader leaned forward. "What are humanity's intentions now?" "Peace," Anna replied simply. "We will disable the military capabilities of those who attacked us or plan to attack us. We will not harm civilian populations. Once security is established, our fleet will stand down." "And we're supposed to just trust you?" asked the Trell representative skeptically. "Trust must be earned," Anna acknowledged. "But consider this. If conquest had been our goal, we could have launched this fleet at any time over the past century. We didn't. We acted only when attacked." As the council debated, an aide rushed in, whispering urgently to the leader. "We've just received word," the Mithran announced, his voice shaking slightly. "The Creel and Saran empires have launched attacks against human positions." Anna's face showed genuine sadness. "Then they too will learn the consequences of their actions." The Creel Imperial fleet moved confidently toward the human colony of Horizon. 300 warships, the pride of their military, formed a massive attack formation. Admiral Korg, supreme commander of the Creel forces, smiled as he viewed the approaching human defenses on his screen. Just 20 ships protected the colony. "Pathetic," he muttered. "The humans have overextended themselves. They can't be strong everywhere." His second-in-command approached cautiously. "Admiral, our long-range sensors detect unusual energy readings beyond the human defense line." "Probably trying to scare us with fake readings," Korg scoffed. "The Void Empire's mistake was attacking without proper intelligence. We know the human fleet is occupied at the Void homeworld." "Sir, I really think—" "Enough!" Korg silenced him. With a wave. "All ships prepare to engage. Target the colony's orbital stations first, then their ground defenses." As the Creel fleet moved within firing range, the space behind the human defenders suddenly rippled. Dimensional gates, dozens of them, tore open. From each portal emerged hundreds of warships. "What's happening?" Korg demanded, rising from his command chair. "Dimensional gates, sir. Human ships, thousands of them." On the main view screen, Korg watched in horror as a massive human armada formed around his fleet. They had walked straight into an ambush. "How?" he whispered. "How could they be here and at the Void homeworld simultaneously?" The answer was as simple as it was terrifying. The humans had enough ships to be everywhere at once. On Hammer Station, Admiral Tom received reports from multiple fronts. "The Creel fleet has been surrounded," Jane reported. "Our forces outnumber them 20 to 1. "And the Soran?" Tom asked. "Engaged 5 minutes ago. Their fleet is already in retreat, but our forces are cutting off their escape routes." Tom nodded, studying the galactic map. Blue dots continued to spread, securing key positions throughout known space. "What about the smaller powers? The Trade Federation? The Xandi League?" "They've all issued formal declarations of neutrality," Jane said with a hint of satisfaction. "Some are even offering to open their borders for inspection to prove they had no part in the Void Empire's plans." The doors to the war room slid open as Diplomat Mark entered. He looked tired but determined. "Admiral, the Galactic Council has requested a formal meeting with humanity's leadership. They're quite eager to establish diplomatic relations." Tom allowed himself a small smile. "I bet they are." Mark hesitated. "There's something else. Other species are beginning to dismantle their military fleets voluntarily. They're broadcasting the process openly, claiming they've chosen peace over conflict." "They're afraid," Jane observed. "Yes," Mark agreed. "But fear can eventually become respect." This could be the beginning of true galactic stability. Tom turned back to the map, watching as more blue dots appeared throughout the galaxy. The human fleet continued to deploy, securing trade routes, jump points, and strategic locations. Schedule the meeting with the Council, he decided. It's time to establish new rules for this galaxy, rules that protect the innocent and punish aggressors. As he spoke, reports continued to flood in from across space. The Creel fleet had surrendered after losing 70% of their ships in just 40 minutes of battle. The Saran Empire was on the verge of collapse, its leadership having fled as human forces dismantled their military infrastructure. Throughout the galaxy, species that had viewed humans as weak newcomers now watched in awe and terror as humanity revealed its true power. The message was clear: attack humanity and face consequences beyond imagination. The galaxy had fallen silent, not in death, but in stunned realization of a new reality. Humanity was not just another species to be conquered or pushed aside. They were the nightmare that ended all others. Emperor Draz paced his prison cell aboard the human ship, Justice. His once magnificent royal robes hung in tatters, and his scaled skin had lost its shine. Just days ago, he had ruled the greatest empire in known space. Now he was a prisoner. His mighty fleet scattered or destroyed. The cell door slid open. Admiral Tom entered, flanked by 2 guards. "Emperor," Tom said with a small, cold nod. Draz glared at the human. "Come to gloat, Admiral?" "No. I came to inform you that your people are safe. We've disabled your military installations but left civilian infrastructure intact." "How generous," Draz sneered. "What do you want? Surrender? Tribute?" Tom's face remained impassive. "Justice for New Haven. Nothing more." Draz studied the human with his 4 eyes. "You're a fool. Do you think this is over? That you've won?" He laughed bitterly. "You don't know what forces you've awakened." Before Tom could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A guard rushed in. "Admiral, emergency transmission from Hammer Station." On the bridge of the Justice, the main screen showed Fleet Commander Jane's urgent face. "The Void Empire's capital defense system has been activated," she reported. "They've launched the Star Eater." Tom's face paled. "That's impossible. We disabled all their weapon systems." "It was hidden, sir. Deep under the Royal Palace. Remote activated. By loyalists." "What target?" Jane's voice was grim. "Earth." Tom's hands clenched into fists. "The Star Eater, the Void Empire's legendary superweapon. It could consume a planet's core, causing it to collapse in on itself. No shield could stop it. How long do we have?" 6 hours before it reaches Earth." Tom turned to see Emperor Draz, watching from the doorway surrounded by guards. A smile of triumph spread across the alien's face. "Did you think we wouldn't have a final solution, human?" Draz taunted. "You may have defeated our fleets, but the Star Eater cannot be stopped. Your homeworld will die, and with it your species' will to fight." Tom ignored him, already issuing orders. "Redirect all available ships to intercept. We need to stop that weapon before it reaches Earth." Captain Bill stood on the bridge of the Retribution, staring at the tactical display with growing dread. His ship, along with 50 others, formed a blockade in the Star Eater's path. "Can we destroy it?" he asked his weapons officer. "Negative, sir. Our scans show it's protected by multiple energy fields. Our weapons can't penetrate them all." Bill frowned. "What about physically intercepting it?" "Any ship that touches it would be destroyed instantly." First Officer Lisa studied the readings. "It's converting matter into energy as it travels. That's what makes it so unstoppable." Bill tapped his communication panel. "Hammer Station, this is the Retribution. We need options." Admiral Tom's face appeared on screen. "Captain, I'm sending you the complete technical data on the Star Eater. Our scientists have been studying it since we discovered its existence." As Bill reviewed the information, a cold realization dawned on him. "There's only one way to stop it, isn't there?" Tom nodded grimly. "Sacrifice protocol. Aboard Hammer Station, Admiral Tom addressed the commanders of the human fleet. 5,000 ships had formed a barrier between Earth and the approaching Star Eater. The weapon cannot be destroyed from a distance, he explained. But it can be stopped if enough ships form a physical barrier. The ships will be destroyed, but their combined mass will overload the Star Eater's conversion capacity. Silence fell across the communication channel. That's a suicide mission, someone finally said. Yes, Tom acknowledged. That's why I'm asking for volunteers only. He didn't have to wait long. Every commander in the blockade volunteered immediately. I'll lead the intercept group, Tom decided. Commander Jane will take overall command of the fleet. With respect, Admiral, Jane interrupted. You're too valuable to lose. I should lead. The sacrifice protocol. Tom shook his head. This is my responsibility. He straightened his uniform. Prepare 5,000 ships for intercept formation. We launch in 1 hour. Word of the Star Eater spread across human space. People gathered around communication screens, watching as the massive human fleet prepared for the ultimate sacrifice on Moar. Earth billions looked up at the night sky, knowing that far above, thousands of their people were preparing to die to save them. Emperor Draz watched from his cell as Admiral Tom prepared to leave the Justice. You're going to die for nothing, Draz said. Even if you stop the Star Eater, the galaxy will never know peace while different species compete for dominance. Tom paused at the door. Perhaps. But today, we fight for the right of all species to have that chance. He studied the fallen Emperor. I pity you. With all your power, you never understood the true strength of humanity. And what is that? Draz sneered. We've spent our history fighting ourselves. It made us strong, but it also taught us the value of peace. We don't seek domination, we seek survival, and we'll do whatever it takes to protect our own, aboard. The Retribution, Captain Bill received new orders. His ship would join Admiral Tom's sacrifice fleet. It's been an honor serving with you all, he told his crew. Anyone who wishes to transfer to another vessel may do so without shame. Not a single crew member left their post. As the Retribution moved into position, Bill looked at the faces around. Humans from different countries, colonies, backgrounds, all united in purpose. For New Haven, he said quietly. For Earth. The Star Eater moved relentlessly toward Earth, a dark mass of swirling energy that consumed everything in its path. Before it, 5,000 human ships formed a massive wall. Admiral. Tom's voice echoed across all communication channels. This is Admiral Tom of the United Systems of Humanity. Today we face our greatest test. The Star Eater cannot be destroyed by conventional means, but it can be stopped by us. He paused, looking at the view screen showing Earth, blue and beautiful against the blackness of space. Many of us will not survive this day, but we do not act only for humanity. We act for all peaceful species who wish to live without fear. Today we prove that humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or ships, but our willingness to sacrifice for what is. Right? The 5,000 ships accelerated toward the oncoming weapon. Across the galaxy, billions of beings from dozens of species watched the unfolding drama. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives stood in silence before the live feeds. They're going to sacrifice themselves, whispered the Mithran leader. Captain Bill gripped his command chair as the Retribution accelerated. Impact in 30 seconds, reported the navigation officer, her voice steady despite the fear. Bill looked at the faces of his crew one last time. It has been my greatest honor to serve with you. 20 seconds. First Officer Lisa reached over and squeezed Bill's hand briefly. No regrets, Captain. 10 seconds. Bill took a deep breath. For humanity. The 5,000 ships collided with the Star Eater in a blinding flash of light. On Hammer Station, Commander Jane watched as the sensors went dark. For several agonizing moments, no one spoke. Then the readings cleared. The Star Eater has been neutralized, reported a sensor officer, disbelief in his voice. The sacrifice worked. A cheer erupted across the station, quickly fading to somber silence as the cost became clear. 5,000 ships, millions of brave humans. Jane straightened her shoulders. Send rescue ships immediately. Look for survivors. As reports came, hope began to grow. The ships at the outer edges of the formation had been badly damaged but not completely destroyed. Nearly half the crews might have survived, but Admiral Tom's command ship had been at the center of the formation, taking the brunt of the impact. Jane closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with new resolve. Send a message to all human forces. The Star Eater has been destroyed, but our mission isn't over. She turned to the galactic map. It's time to ensure this never happens again. In his cell, Emperor Draz received the news with shock. Impossible, he muttered. They sacrificed themselves for what? The human guard looked at him with pity. For each other. Something you'll never understand. For the first time in his long life, Emperor Draz began to question everything he had believed about power, about strength, about the true nature of superiority. Throughout the galaxy, the news spread. Humans had sacrificed thousands of their own ships to save their homeworld. Not just their leaders or soldiers, but ordinary citizens had volunteered for what seemed like certain death. It was a concept many species struggled to comprehend. Not conquest for glory, not destruction for power, but sacrifice for others. The galaxy had feared humanity for their weapons and the size of their fleet. Now they began to fear something else entirely. The unbreakable will of a species that would do anything to protect not just themselves, but all who desired peace. The nightmare wasn't the human fleet. It was the realization that humanity could never truly be defeated, because they valued something more than their own survival. And that made them the most powerful force the galaxy had ever known. 3 months after the Star Eater's destruction, a new peace had settled across the galaxy. Human warships patrolled major trade routes, jump points, and borders between formerly hostile species. The Void Empire had been dismantled, its worlds, now self-governing under human protection. The Creel and Saran empires had surrendered completely, their military capabilities reduced to defensive forces only. Fleet Commander Jane, now promoted to Admiral Jane, stood before the massive window in Hammer Station's observation deck. The stars shone brilliantly against the blackness of space, peaceful and serene. It was hard to believe that just months ago, those same stars had witnessed the largest military operation in galactic history. The door slid open behind her. She turned to see Captain Bill enter, walking with a slight limp. A reminder of his injuries when the Retribution had barely survived the Star Eater impact. "Admiral," he greeted her with a smile and a salute. "Captain," she returned warmly. "How's the new ship?" After the destruction of the Retribution, Bill had been given command of a newer, more advanced vessel named Renewal. It seemed fitting. "She's magnificent," Bill replied, "though I still miss the Retribution sometimes." Jane nodded in understanding. "You and your crew did something extraordinary that day. The history books will remember you." Bill's expression grew somber. "Any news about Admiral Tom?" Jane's face reflected the same sadness. "The search teams are still looking. His ship took the direct impact." Her voice trailed off. They stood in silence for a moment, honoring their missing leader. "The Galactic Council session begins in an hour," Jane finally said. "Are you ready to represent humanity alongside me?" Bill straightened his uniform. "As ready as I'll ever be." The Galactic Council chamber had been rebuilt and expanded. Once home to 40 species, it now hosted representatives from over 100 worlds. Many were former subjects of the fallen empires, now independent and finding their voice in galactic affairs for the first time. Admiral Jane and Captain Bill entered to a hush that swept through the massive chamber. All eyes turned to the human representatives as they made their way to the central podium. The Mithran leader, who still served as head of the council, greeted them formally. "The council recognizes Admiral Jane and Captain Bill of the United Systems of Humanity." Jane stepped forward. "Honorable representatives, thank you for gathering today. 3 months ago, our galaxy stood on the brink of chaos. Today, we meet in peace." She activated a holographic display showing statistics. Trade between worlds had increased by 300%. Piracy had decreased by 87%. Former conflict zones were now stable and rebuilding. The human fleet continues to patrol key regions, Jane continued, not as conquerors but as peacekeepers. Every world remains sovereign, free to govern itself as it chooses. As long as they don't build weapons, a voice called out from the assembly. Jane met the speaker's eyes, a representative from a former, Void Empire world. As long as they don't threaten others, she corrected. Defensive capabilities are permitted to all. Weapons of aggression are not. The Mithran leader raised his ancient hand. Admiral, while the peace is welcome, many worlds fear this is merely an exchange of one empire for another. The human fleet still numbers in the hundreds of thousands. Your power remains unchallenged. Captain Bill stepped forward. We understand those concerns. That's why we've come today with a proposal. He activated another holographic display, showing plans for a new organization. We call it the Galactic Defense Alliance, Bill explained. A joint force with ships and personnel from all member worlds, trained and equipped to maintain peace throughout known space. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Over time, Jane added, the human fleet will transfer more responsibility to the Alliance. Our goal is not eternal dominance, but lasting peace. And if we choose not to join this alliance? Asked the Saran representative suspiciously. That is your right, Jane replied. No world will be forced to join. But the benefits of membership, shared, technology, trade advantages, security guarantees, will be substantial. As the council debated the proposal, Jane and Bill exchanged a glance. They had expected resistance, skepticism, even fear. After centuries of imperial rule by various species, trust would take time to build. Later that day, Jane and Bill walked through a memorial garden on a neutral space station. Stone monuments honored the fallen of New Haven and the heroes of the Star Eater battle. At the center stood a statue of Admiral Tom, his face solemn but kind, his hand extended in an offer of peace. Do you think he would approve of what we're doing? Bill asked, looking up at the statue. Jane smiled sadly. He always said humanity's goal wasn't conquest, but security. I think he'd be proud. Their communication devices buzzed simultaneously. The same urgent message appeared on both screens. Rescue Team Alpha reports finding survivors. Admiral Tom, possibly among them. They raced to the nearest shuttle. On a remote medical station, Jane and Bill waited anxiously outside a treatment room. The rescue team had found escape pods from Admiral Tom's command ship, drifting in a distant sector. Some of the pods contained survivors in stasis, barely alive after months adrift. The door opened. A doctor emerged, looking tired but pleased. Admiral, Captain, she greeted them. He's awake and asking for you. They entered to find Admiral Tom propped up in bed, thinner and paler than before, but unmistakably alive. His eyes brightened when he saw them. Jane, Bill, it's good to see you both. Jane fought back tears as she saluted. Admiral, the galaxy believed you lost. For a while I was, Tom replied weakly. But it seems humanity isn't done with me yet. He listened intently as they updated him on everything that had happened. The peace settlements, the Galactic Council, the proposed defense alliance. It sounds like you've managed things well in my absence, he said with pride. We tried to follow your vision, Bill told him. Tom nodded slowly. And the fleet? Our ships? Still maintaining peace, Jane assured him. But many captains have requested permission to stand down, to return to exploration, science, commerce. A smile spread across Tom's tired face. Good. That was always the plan. Our ships were built for defense, not conquest. It's time they returned to their true purpose. 6 months later, Admiral Tom stood on the observation deck of a new ship, the New Dawn. His health had returned, though doctors said he would never again command in battle. That was fine with him. His fighting days were over. Beside him stood a young girl, no more than 10 years old. She was a survivor from New Haven, one of the few who had been off-world during the attack. Now orphaned, she had been adopted by a family on Earth. Is it True what they say? She asked, looking up at him with curious eyes. That humans are the most powerful beings in the galaxy now? Tom considered her question carefully. We have the strongest ships, yes, but true power isn't about weapons or fleets. What is it about then? He gestured to the view screen, which showed hundreds of ships from dozens of worlds training together under the banner of the new Galactic Defense Alliance. It's about building something that lasts, something worth protecting. He smiled down at her. The galaxy feared us when our warships launched. They called us their nightmare. But nightmares fade when morning comes. And now? The girl asked. Now the galaxy is silent, Tom said softly. Not in fear, but in peace. Not in death, but in life. The girl looked thoughtful. Will there be more wars? Perhaps someday. That's the nature of thinking beings. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. But when that day comes, it won't be humanity alone that stands against the darkness. It will be all of us together. As they watched, a new class of human ships emerged from Earth's shipyards. These weren't warships, but exploration vessels, their lines sleek and beautiful, built not to destroy, but to discover. That's our true destiny, Tom told the girl. Not to rule the stars, but to learn from them. Not to conquer, but to connect. Throughout the silent galaxy, species that had once viewed each other with suspicion now worked together under humanity's watchful guidance. The nightmare had ended, replaced by something many had thought impossible, true galactic peace. And if that peace was protected by the quiet knowledge that 900,000 human warships could launch again if needed, well, some nightmares served a purpose. They reminded everyone that some lines should never be crossed, that some actions could never be undone, and that humanity's patience, once broken, would not be tested twice. The galaxy remained silent, and in that silence, a new era had begun.